Hello fellow designers, it's Karen of Karen Gwen Customs. I am working on beading a wedding gown that I made. So I'm adding these tiny 4mm rhinestones and I'm sewing them on one by one. This is my first time doing this, and as I was searching YouTube to look for tips, I realized there wasn't really much available. So I thought that I would do one side, see how it went, and then record myself doing a little bit of the other side just to give you guys a few of my tips that I've learned on how to hand bead a wedding gown. So if you want some tips on this technique, stay tuned. But before you do, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share with someone that might be interested in my content. Also make sure you turn on the notification bell so that you get notified every time I upload. Being that this was my first time doing hand beading on a wedding dress, I decided to do one side first just to make sure I had the hang of it. And then I decided I was going to do the other side second and record myself after I got comfortable with the process. So when you have bridal lace, it usually comes with a lot of natural swirls and curves. So as you can see here, for example, here's one of the curves that I'm talking about. And on this side, I followed that curve and then I kind of swirled it down into another curve. So basically I'm going to be taking this side as my example and emulating it on this side and trying to keep everything symmetrical. So the first thing you're going to do is take your needle and you're going to stick it into, pull that out. You're going to take your needle and stick it into the fabric like so. Stick it in and bring it right back out. And then you want to make sure your knot is big enough that it won't pull through, but also small enough that it won't be super noticeable. You're going to then take your bead, and then there are two little holes on the back of the bead. You're just going to stick your needle right through. Then you're going to take your needle and stick it back through your material like so, behind the thread, and then you're going to bring it out in front of the thread. You want to leave enough space between where you're sticking your needle in and where you're pulling it out so that you have space for another bead. So here's how the first bead came on, and now I'm going to thread the second bead. And I'm just going to push my needle through where the first bead ends and then push it out through the material with leaving a little bit of space. So as you can see, there's about 2 beads worth of space between where my needle was inserted and where it's coming out. And as I pull it, I kind of try to keep my bead in my hand until it gets really close to the material. The beads, or the stones I should say, do have prongs on them. They're just like a ring, like how a diamond on a ring is held in with prongs. These are shaped the exact same way. So if you're not careful, the prongs can snag on your fabric, they can snag on your thread, they can get stuck on your needle. So just make sure you're being careful as you are pulling your needle through. I ordered a packet of 1,440 of these stones from a little shop on Etsy located in China. That was a while back, and they were about $10. These are 4mm stones. It's a really good price, plus whatever I paid for shipping, I don't remember. But I'm hoping that that will be enough for me to finish this project. When I ordered it, 1,440 seemed like so much, and I just couldn't imagine myself sewing over 1,000 beads onto a dress, but I very well may end up using the whole entire packet of beads. And when I was first approached about doing this dress, I was actually a little bit nervous. Let's start off. I was actually a little bit nervous because I had never done hand beading before, and it just seemed like so much work for me to devote to one project. But once I've gotten into it and really gotten the hang of it, it's really not that bad. It is time consuming and tedious, but kind of in a good way. The whole process of making this dress really has been fun. It's different from any dress I've done before. And while it was difficult, it's nice to get to the end point and just be sewing bling on, because who doesn't love bling? So I'm definitely happy that I got to get some experience with this, because I'll definitely be using it more in the future, because bling is always a really important part of making wedding dresses. I'm also going to be telling my bride when she takes the dress home that she needs to be careful during her wedding if she is, you know, like while she's hugging people, because of course you hug people at your wedding. These little stones can snag on people's clothes as well, and you don't want to run the risk of ripping a stone off your dress. So you got to be really careful. So with this hand so y'all can see good. Hope my hand wasn't in the way previously. I didn't realize, since I have the camera that way, that my hand might have been blocking the view. But following the same process of threading my stone onto the thread and then sticking my needle right where the last stone ends and bringing it about 2 stones worth of space ahead on the curve. And you can kind of like shove them around to make sure they're lining up properly. This is actually my 3rd time recording this video, unfortunately, because the first time I did not realize, and this is for any new content creators out there who are just learning how to use a camera, if you shut your camera off before you hit stop on the recording, then you will basically lose your file. So I could still watch the files on my camera, but when I tried to import them to my computer, it says 0 bytes, and it's basically like not readable by the computer. So gotta be careful with that, but hopefully 3rd time is a charm. And I am sewing these beads on one by one. If you feel like they're a little bit loose, just pull on the one that you feel is loose, and then pull on each bead that follows, because you want to make sure they're installed as tightly as possible. Now I am sewing my beads on one by one. As I get more experience, I'm going to try with sewing them on 2 by 2 and maybe even 3 by 3 to make the process go faster. But when I was sewing them on more than one at a time, it just seemed like it was difficult to keep them in a straight line. because I like to pull tight. Oh, okay, so right here I have a little problem happening. My needle actually got snagged on one of the prongs, and I kind of just had to wiggle it around until it came loose. Now, sometimes when that happens, the the needle will actually rip the prong open and the little diamond will fall out, in which case you just need to cut your thread with enough space to tie a knot and secure the stones you already have and pull off the ruined stone, because you don't want to have any empty prongs on the dress. If you accidentally put on an empty prong, you just need to cut it off and restart your thread. Oops. Snag. Huh? What, Kylie?
Just taking a hug.
I hug you back. I love you too. Why is this tangled? I'm so annoyed. This thread is twisted, but I'm going to try to still pull it through anyways. This is a struggle. This is my third time recording this video. Okay, so that worked out. Remember, stick your needle through right where the last bead ends and then bring it forward to give you enough space to add another bead. And as you're pulling, remember to kind of hold your bead so you get very close to the fabric so that it doesn't snag on anything. Now on this side of the dress, I followed the curve from here to here, and then instead of coming all the way around, I followed another curve, so I kind of made sort of the shape of an S. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side, and instead of going all the way around, I'm going to follow this curve. And ultimately, the shape that you apply your beads in just is going to be up to personal preference or your bride's preference or whatever. When you're pulling your thread, if you feel like it's a little hard for you to pull it or it feels funny, you need to check your stone because your thread is probably caught on one of the prongs. And usually if you just wiggle it a little, it will fix, but sometimes you have to look really closely to get it untangled. Whew. This is something that you have to be very careful and meticulous and take your time on. If you go too fast, then you're going to make mistakes. That's better. Okay, I'm gonna cut this off here because my battery is about to die. But let's pretend I finished this whole curve. What you're gonna do when you get ready to cut your thread, bring your thread off to a point that is inconspicuous where you have room to tie a knot. And then just tie a knot. I like to tie at least 4 to 5 knots to end my thread.